anymore. And I've got a beard that's got some gray and white in it. I've got long hair pulled back today, and I'm sitting in my office that I share with my colleague Shima Kabarigi. Shima's not here today, but that's where she would be. And I'm joined by my other colleague, Bree Chamberlain, who we are the Grants for Change staff at Maine Initiatives. So if you've gotten emails from us, it's going to come from one of us. But just welcome you all today to this information session for potential applicant organizations. Want to just acknowledge that applying for grants can be a lot, can be stressful. We try to make it as minimally burdensome as possible because y'all are doing such great work and we want your energy to be going in that direction. That's our goal in this, and part of that is also to just make ourselves available to answer questions and to try to make it as sort of clear and to be as clear as possible around our process, and also to provide you information. So today is really information focused and information heavy to just really be able to give you sort of an overview of the process and the application, and then to also have time to answer your questions. And just to say too, if questions come up either in this session that you don't feel is relevant for everyone, feel free to reach out. And if you don't already have our email, we will provide that during this session. And also we are available throughout the process. Applications are due July 31st. So, really this whole time, please reach out. I'll ask if you have questions, try to hang on to them until the end, because we will have time at the end for questions. Or feel free you can put them in the chat, and Bree will be monitoring the chat. We'll make sure that we bring that question back to the end. All right, like I said, today's pretty information heavy. There are parts that I can skip over. If folks are familiar with Maine Initiatives, we can sort of breeze through those parts and really sort of focus on the application, but also want to give the opportunity if Maine Initiatives is new for you, want to just be able to say a few words about Maine Initiatives as well. So when we get to that part, I'll ask if you're familiar with Maine Initiatives, if you are unfamiliar with Maine Initiatives, to let us know, because then I'll slow down at that point. And if you are familiar with Maine Initiatives, if everybody feels comfortable with that, we can just move past that part. Okay. Maybe a collective deep breath. It's going to be a lot of information. I'll try to go slowly, but know too, we will share out this proposal in a PDF too, so that you'll be able to review it afterwards. All right. I am going to share my screen now. Let's see if this works. All right, let's see. Tech is not my forte, but maybe, all right. How's that? How's that look? You can see my screen? Great. So again, this is the Grants for Change. This is the informational session for potential applicant organizations. Our agenda for the day, sort of welcome. This is your welcome. We'll talk a little bit about who we are, sort of our vision and framework around this work, this process, our grant making, because it is a little different maybe than other funders, and we hope for the better. We'll talk about what we do, how we do it, because also our process is a little bit different from other grant making processes. And then we'll get into the funding opportunity announcement, which really is just sort of the laying out the application, and we'll get into the application. And then we'll have time for questions. All right, so who we are. Okay, just an overview. So this is our mission statement. Maine Initiatives, a fund for change, cultivates social, economic, and environmental justice through grants and other support to grassroots organizations in Maine community. So that's our mission statement. We've been around since the 80s, but we have over the last 10 years have shifted really to be focused on racial justice efforts broadly. And I'll you'll see a little bit later on, but racial justice, we also define including tribal sovereignty efforts. And just want to note that, we include tribal sovereignty efforts in our understanding of racial justice. And just to note, right, that race as it relates to the tribes, that's a tricky combination there too. So that's why we make that clarification. So how do we do that work? We do that work now through, we've got 5 programs. So initially it was just the Grants for Change program at Maine Initiatives, but now we have 5 programs. So Grants for Change, we also have our Immigrant-Led Organization Fund that, again, my colleague Shima directs, supporting immigrant flourishing in Maine. We also have the Giving Project, which we're launching this fall, which is a donor organizing model to support community organizing across the state. So really excited about that. We have a Maine Share program, which is our workplace giving program. And we also have our Outdoor Equity Fund that supports outdoor equity initiatives focused on BIPOC communities in Maine. What we do. So like I said, we've made a long-term commitment to centering racial justice and racial equity in our work. And we see our work at that intersection between community organizing, community philanthropy, and justice work. Pictured here, this is our grant-making committee from last year's process. Welcome, Foster. So glad you could join us. So this is our grant-making committee from last year, most of those people, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And again, this is a little bit different, right, than potentially other foundations grant-making process. So you can see we had about 40, maybe over 40 people last year participate in our decision-making, and you might recognize some of these folks. Hopefully they're folks that are connected to the work that's happening. So we use what we think of as a radically participatory place-based model to do this work, because we believe, who knows better than folks that are doing the work, right? So we try to center the people that are most affected or impacted by our grant making in the decision making. All right, and you can see this is sort of what it looks like. This is for 2 years ago, all of us in space together. We do multi-day retreats around our grant making. We'll talk more about that in a minute. So Grants for Change, those Maine Initiatives. Let's talk about the Grants for Change program. So Grants for Change, participatory grant-making program that funds and strengthens Black, Indigenous, and people of color, community-based nonprofit organizations in Maine, unceded Wabanaki territory through funding and relationship building opportunities. All right. We understand that also BIPOC too is a term that is not sufficient to fully sort of capture the identities when we're talking about people from the global majority, but it's a shorthand, right, that people are familiar with. Just to note, since 2016, when we did shift our focus, actually in 2015, to focus on racial justice, with our Grants for Change program being central to that, we've been able to fund over 74 organizations, $3.4 million. And we're really proud of that work. We feel like this is This is our priority of funding racial justice, the racial justice ecosystem in Maine, and this is the impact. So just an overview of what that looks like. So for the Get Grants for Change program, this year, as we have the last 2 years, we are looking to fund a cohort of 12 organizations. And you'll see we say organizations, but you don't have to be formally an organization to apply. You just have to have a fiscal sponsor. So to fund 12 organizations with multi-year grants, so those are 3-year grants, $15,000 each year for $45,000 total. So $15,000, it would be this fall, next fall, and the following fall, or December actually, early December. $45,000 total over the 3 years, 15 each year. We don't have any reporting requirements either. You know, a lot of grants, you have to submit a report either at the end of the year or half year or something like that. Not for us, all right? We trust that you're doing the work that you're doing. We want to show up to support the work you're doing. We think the onus is on us to understand that work and to be connected to the work that you're doing. So no reporting required. Our priorities in this fund, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a second, priorities are Black and Wabanaki-led organizations, accepting applications from all BIPOC-led organizations and have fund from all different BIPOC groups, but our priorities Black and Wabanaki-led organizations. Also, we prioritize community building and community organizing, broadly defined too, right? We feel like community organizing, community building is central to racial justice work. We feel like it's our role to support that kind of movement building and ecosystem building. So that's a priority. Over the 3 years that we've made this commitment for, we'll be able to support 36 organizations in this. And finally, we have this participatory process. Again, it's different than other kinds of grant making. And through this participatory process, we basically have been able to organize the broader community in Maine to support the incredible work that's happening. And we'll talk more about that. Here's a list of the organizations that we have, really the community has selected, that we've been able to fund through Grants for Change. I won't read them all into the space here. Now they are also on our website, but just to give you a sense of who is in the cohort, who has community selected that are really sort of leading in the work of racial justice. So these are our current cohort members, 24 organizations that have been selected over the last 2 years. Our vision, just to give you a sense of how we're oriented to the work, we feel like it's important to be transparent around that as well, of our vision for this work. And this vision has been informed by our community relationships over the years and continues to evolve based on conversations that happen at our grant making advisory committee retreats. And like you saw, 40 people, leaders in the state around racial justice coming together. So this is our vision, really. And it's premised, okay, on this understanding, this acknowledgement, this responsibility actually for us, right? This acknowledgement that philanthropy exists from a place of harm, essentially, right? Philanthropy exists because of wealth extraction, the accumulation of wealth historically, right? Because of land theft, right? Because of labor extraction in terms of enslavement in this country, right? So as an organization that is working in philanthropy, we see it's our responsibility, right, to address this harm through our grant making, hence sort of the priorities in terms of our focus. And that's how we orient ourselves, okay? And these harms continue today in terms of philanthropic practice. The way that we orient to this is our response to that acknowledgement of that truth and that history, that legacy. All right. So with this program, we seek to respond to the particular intergenerational effects of anti-Black racism experienced by descendants of enslaved people in the United States and the continental US and the Caribbean. One, okay. And two, the specific histories and contemporary realities of settler colonialism experienced by generations of Wabanaki in this land now called Maine, right? So as a grant maker, we feel like it's important for us to be responsible to those two historical realities and current realities. We know that, less than 8% of philanthropic dollars, for example, go to Black-led organizations across the country, right? So that's not happening on the broader level in terms of that response. We feel like that needs to be a priority here. These are also groups that have been historically marginalized from funding opportunities, okay? So I wanted to sort of ground us in the priorities of this program. And again, sort of our analysis here. This is all also contained in the funding opportunity announcement. This is all laid out, and again, for transparency, we feel like this is important, right? But just to name, right, the root causes of racial inequality today are connected to anti-Black racism and settler colonialism, we believe. These legacies continue today. They're foundational injustices that inhibit our ability across the country to achieve social, economic, and environmental justice, right? So that's where our mission intersects with this work. These persistent and pervasive realities exist today. They're structural. So we want to support organizations and groups that are intervening on that. And again, in the funding space, right, this work, both from Black-led work, again, connected to people, descendants of enslavement in this country, and also Wabanaki-led efforts are systematically undervalued and underfunded. So we're trying to intervene on that as well through this. So that's connected to our commitments, okay? And I won't spend too much more time on this because I feel like, yeah, maybe sort of you get our orientation. And again, I would invite you, we'll share out this in a PDF form to sort of look over, and feel free to reach out if there are questions. But we want to give you a sense of what the Grant Making Advisory Committee too and our readers are going to be centered on when they're reviewing applications. Okay, so right, so we want to serve and support organizations that are working at that systemic level. We want to support organizations that are working in community building, advocacy, organizing policy change, again, to be responsible to those histories. We want to strengthen groups that are working in traditional, cultural, indigenous wisdoms and ways as well, and are led by, served by, organized in solidarity with Black and Wabanaki communities. And this relates to our funding priorities. And just some examples here of the kind of work that we have supported, the community has selected to support through this as we're learning what racial justice looks like and means and needs, and who's doing the work in Maine. So some examples are abolitionist efforts, right? The foreground harm reduction, collective healing, transformative work, restorative justice practices, advocacy, certainly, around education or healthcare, affordable housing, right? Tribal sovereignty efforts also, and also centering efforts that center Black joy and liberation. And we'll talk about some others, but as you can see too, right, these are things that haven't necessarily been funded through traditional pathways, right? And also, and hopefully I'm speaking to folks who for whom this is understood, right? These efforts are also counter to a lot of the status quo and aren't going to get funding, be it from the state or again other funders. And we feel like we have a role to support this social change work. All right, maybe just a breath. I know this, again, a lot of information, but I want to be transparent about what we've learned and how we orient in this program. And again, this is all of these learnings are community informed too. So just a little bit of some more framework here. So we're trying to fund both organizations that are really central to the work that's happening currently, and we call these hub organizations. Maybe they're a little bit larger, perhaps, and again, all of these organizations are not going to be huge. BIPOC-led organizations in Maine aren't going to be huge, again, for those very reasons of underfunding. But so we want to support those organizations that we're calling hub organizations. And we want to support those organizations that are just emerging and groups that are just starting out as well. We want to support work that's also happening intersectionally. Okay, and by that we mean work that is in recognition that within marginalized communities, it's important to also support those who are marginalized within marginalized communities. Okay, so to support work right by historically marginalized groups, including LGBTQ plus groups, those from the disabled community or differently abled communities, work that happens with youth or the elderly, and also, as we have here, geographically diverse too. We want to support work that's happening across the state. A lot of the funding in Maine goes to organizations and groups located in southern Maine. So that's something that our grant making advisory committee is taking into account. And here's just a statement about intersectionality. It's not necessarily a term that everybody's familiar with, but I think this, for me at least, this sums up the importance of intersectionality in racial justice work here. So this says the most general statement of our politics at the present time would be that we are actively committed to struggling against racial, sexual, heterosexual, and class oppression, and see our particular task the development of integrated analysis and practice-based upon the fact that the major systems of oppression are interlocking. The synthesis of these oppressions creates the conditions of our lives. And just want to sit with that for a moment. That might be something that resonates with y'all. Again, this is the kind of ecosystem that we're trying to support through this program and through this funding. So what we do, how we do this work, and this we're getting into some of the more particulars of our funding, our eligibility criteria. So as we're going through this part, it might be helpful to think for yourself. Okay, does my organization or group meet these? If you have questions about some of these, please email us. And we can discuss. So Grants for Change program funds groups or organizations that are working exclusively or primarily in Maine communities, implementing programs that advance racial justice, and racial justice sort of as understood in the ways that we have just talked about, and potentially in other ways, okay, that hasn't been funded so far, or the ways that we're not thinking about, right? And we invite that as well. This is an opportunity also for community to learn. If you're doing work that falls outside of work that we've talked about broadly just now, yeah, we invite that, okay? So programming that primarily serves and support BIPOC communities, really important. And then be a Black, Brown, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, or person of color led and serving organization, group, or coalition. Okay, and we know that, and we'll talk a little bit about what that leadership looks like and how we define that. We know a lot of the work, right, happens across race and across class, really crucial. We want to support, again, those groups that have leadership that maybe historically haven't had the access to funding or funding relationships that white identified or white led organizations have had. Okay. And lastly, an organization that has an operating budget of under 2.5 million. And that's increased from 1.5 million last year. That for some of you, that may seem like a lot of money, okay? And it is. Sometimes it's hard to wrap head around that. And for some of our hub organizations that are making it possible for communities to thrive and for other groups to thrive, that 2.5 million is not a whole lot of money based on what they're doing. So we're trying to, again, support some of those more established organizations and newer organizations. So that's generally the eligibility. And then when we're looking at what we mean by BIPOC leadership, the way to understand that is that we ask for you to self-identify in the application if you, as an organization or a group, for at least the last 2 years, have had 50% or more, okay, of your leadership identify as BIPOC. And so this is 2 or 3 of these categories. Okay, so if you meet at least two of these categories, then for us, you're eligible as a BIPOC-led organization. So the three things are BIPOC key leaders, key staff of the organization, leadership in the organization. So that can be directors. That's like who's making operational decisions in the organization. You know, so executive director, that could be, or if you have a management team. 2 BIPOC members on the board of directors, or if you have like your leadership council, so 50% or more of that governing body. And finally, 50% or more of the folks that are on the ground, that are community interfacing, that are doing the work, either staff or volunteers. So 50% or more of 2 of those categories. Okay, 2 of the 3, maybe it's all 3. And, okay, we make this qualification and also provide for organizations or groups to explain if you don't meet 2 out of the 3 of those for the last 2 years, but if that is an intentional decision made by the organization and specifically made by BIPOC leaders within the organization, we invite you to explain that. And I'll give an example just so you can understand how that happens. And again, a lot of this work is happening across race and cross class, and it's crucial racial justice work. But let's say you're an organization and that you're like a Wabanaki-led organization, but that you believe that other people need to hold more labor, and that those people are directly accountable to and following the leadership of Wabanaki leadership, but you have strategically put white identified folks, for example, in leadership positions. We would want to hear about that, right? And we would welcome applications from groups that have that kind of strategic decision, again, because all the labor shouldn't be on BIPOC folks, right? And if that's how you're moving, we want to celebrate that too. And again, if there are questions about this, we'll have time at the end, and please feel free to reach out. All right, so let's see. All right, I think that we Just making sure I didn't skip over anything. All right. How we do this. All right. The process essentially. So we have a community-led design process, and our application and the funding opportunity announcement, the vision that we just talked about, our framework has all been informed by community leaders. We've had a steering committee at Grants for Change. We've had a sounding board at Grants for Change. All the people I worked with when I started at Maine Initiatives, and I've been with Maine Initiatives now for 3 years, who helped develop the program as it is now. It's been informed by our grant making committee process, and finally by the applicants themselves. So um, the application, the framework is also informed by those last 2 cohorts that you saw, and feedback. So community-led design. We put out the funding opportunity announcement, the FOA for short. Applications are due July 31st. Today, hopefully, maybe tomorrow, but in the next 2 days, we're going to be launching our reader application. Okay. So with Grants for Change, if you apply, you'll have your application read by peers in the community who sign up to be readers. Okay. And these are folks who are either leaders in racial justice work in the state. Many are. These are folks who are peers from peer nonprofits or groups. These are folks who are all committed to supporting racial justice work. We encourage certainly past cohort members or groups selected, so current grantees. And we encourage you, if you are an applicant, to also apply to be a reader, right? You get a chance to read other proposals, which is also helpful sometimes in grant writing, and learn about the work of other peers, potentially partnership opportunities. So we invite you to be a reader. So we'll be sending out information about that today or tomorrow. And so we're asking people to sign up by July 26th for that. And every year, just to say, every year we have somewhere between 150 and 350 readers. So every application is going to probably get between 10 and 12 reads, which is great sort of feedback too, okay, for you in terms of your application, and also just informative for the process and really for the grant making advisory committee. So that's the next step in the process. So this fall, we'll select a grant making advisory committee from the readers. Last year, we had somewhere between 40 and 44 people on that committee that met for 3 days in November to really talk about all of the applications, all the work that's happening around racial justice in the state, both work that's in the applications and maybe work that's not in the applications, and to give each application a good read and to discuss and make decisions about the 12 organizations selected. Okay, so to say, even if you're not selected for the cohort this year, you'll have your application read by 10 to 12 community peers, so they'll get to learn about your work. You'll have your application read by all of those 40, say, people who are selected for the grant making committee, so they'll get to learn about your work that's happening. And then if you're not selected, you'll have the opportunity to have a conversation with myself or with Bree to talk about what was the feedback that all of those people gave, which could be helpful to you, all right, in other applications. So we even in this, we want to try to resource you all, if you're not selected, because we also know that takes a lot of time. Okay, there's a lot you put into writing a grant application. And then grant selection and announcement will happen end of November. We'll make that announcement the first week in December, so those groups that are selected can expect to receive those grant awards that first week of December. All right, maybe just another breath. I know, again, it's a lot of information, but want to make sure that we resource y'all as much as possible to do the application. So now we'll get into the application, the specifics of it. I'll try to anticipate questions that you may have, but again, we'll have time at the end if you have questions. And in this, also invite you, if you're able to take a look at the application, to take a look at the funding opportunity announcement on your own time. I'll highlight some things here, but if you can, take a moment with those as well. All right, so here's the application, this year's application. It's on the Maine Initiative's website, and Bree will be able to share links both to the application and also the funding opportunity announcement. And the funding opportunity announcement really is just the explanation, all right? And I would highly recommend reading that through completely before looking at the application, and then looking at the application completely before you start into it. Also on the funding opportunity announcement at the end of it, and I'll mention this again soon, we also show the evaluative form that the readers will do, okay, in their read and review of your application. So it's 9 pages long. It's important to note that it's a fillable PDF. So you would have to download the PDF from our website and save it. And then you can type right into the PDF for that. If that's not accessible to you and you have any issues with that, please reach out to us and we can figure out a workaround. Okay, we do that every year. Not a problem. It's 9 pages long. There's sections A through D. There's a last section that's optional. 21 short answer questions, and then 4 narrative questions. And we'll talk about that here in a second. The sections are, the first one's general information. The second is asks about sort of legal, fiscal information. For this, again, you don't have to be a 501c3 nonprofit to apply, but you do have to identify a fiscal sponsor who is a 501c3 in order to apply. There's a section on organizational leadership, and then there's the narrative proposal section or the narrative section, and then the optional section is to talk about anything else that you'd like at that time. Here's what the funding opportunity announcement looks like and the overview. Many of the things in the FOA are things that we talked about at the beginning of this info session. All right, so it has all of those priorities, visions, talks about our participatory grant-making process, and how to apply. And lastly, the evaluative criteria, again, for the sake of transparency. And here's the narrative piece. And this is really at the heart of the application for us. We try to ask really sort of open questions in order for you to talk about your work in a way that allows you to shine, hopefully. All right. Really, it's an opportunity for you to talk about your organization, okay? Talk about your work that you do. Talk about how you advance racial justice. And then finally, the last section is an opportunity for you to share a story about what success looks like for you in your work, in the ways that you define, not the ways that we define success. We want to hear about your work in the ways that you define success. And to do that, we just offer the opportunity for you to share a story, share a story about a success that you've had in your work. So that the narrative section is really the heart of the application. The word counts are only a suggestion don't need to have 350 words or 300 words. You can have less than that. You can have a lot less, or you can write more. Just sort of suggested word amounts for the narrative section. And then our readers, so there's two stages in terms of how we're going to evaluate your application. Well, three maybe. The first is Grants for Change staff, main initiative staff. We'll go through the application, make sure that you're eligible. If we have any questions or you've missed any questions, we'll get back to you right away and either ask for clarification. So that's the first stage. And then once we determine your eligibility and make sure your application is complete, we will send your application to readers, and each reader, and that could be you as well. You won't get your application, you'll get another, but we'll read 3 applications, and we're asking them to evaluate really connected to those 4 narrative questions that we just looked at, okay? We're asking our readers to say, hey, is this organization, is their mission clear? What they're doing clear? Is their work important in this moment? Is the work, right, important? Does the approach make sense? Does the work, will it make the intended impact that they seek to make? We'll ask the readers to look at how the applicant talks about racial justice. Okay, and we have 4 sort of questions for the readers to reflect on around that. And finally, is the success story, does it make sense? Are they making the impact, again, meaningful impact that they're trying to make? Okay, so that's really the overview of the evaluations that the readers will do. And then all of the reader sort of reviews and comments and observations will all be passed on to the Grant Making Advisory Committee. So they're getting to harvest and learn from all of that sort of knowledge about the applications. And the Grant Making Advisory Committee will meet for 3 days, use that information, but really make their own decisions. So all of the readers, it's informative, and then the Grant Making Advisory Committee in November will make decisions. All right. Now, this is, yeah. So here's sort of the next steps. And then we'll open it up for questions. All right. So here's sort of the important steps or next steps if you are interested in applying. First thing to note is the application deadline, which is July 31st. At the end of the day, we put 11:59 p.m. Yeah, that's the deadline. If that will be an issue for any reason, please let us know. We'll work with you on that. I'm the kind of person that does a lot of things at the last minute, and life can get full. So yeah, let us know if that's an issue. But that's the deadline. We also try to we've have this application period open for 6 weeks, with the hope too that gives folks enough time if you got other things going on. So that's the first thing. Check your eligibility. Look at the funding opportunity announcement. Make sure you're eligible. If you have questions, reach out. Read the application completely first, so you get a sense of all the questions we're going to ask in there before you start your application. If there's any accessibility requests around the application, for example, language translation, if English is not your first language and you would benefit from the application being translated, reach out to us and let us know, and we will try to accommodate that. That can take a little bit of time as well. So we're asking all organizations that are interested in some sort of accessibility accommodations to let us know by July 1st, so that then we can work with you to make that happen. And finally, complete and submit your application using, again, the fillable PDF that if she hasn't already, Bree will put a link to that in the chat that you will find also on our website. So download the fillable PDF, save it, complete the application there, and then email it back to grants4change@maineinitiatives.org. So that's GRANTS, the number 4, change, CHANGE, at maininitiatives.org. Email it back to that email address. We will confirm that we've received it and let you know we're doing our initial review. So if you don't get a confirmation, check email address that you sent it to, because I even misspelled the main initiatives because there's a lot of I's and sometimes I forget one. So double check that as well. So those are the steps. All right. We got time for questions. And again, thank you for your attention too. I know that's a lot of talk, a lot of information, a lot of me talking, which I don't like to do necessarily, especially as we're gathering community. I would love to instead just be in space with y'all and have conversations and connect. But I see this as an opportunity, or my responsibility, to give as much information I can. So I hope we get other times to connect too. So yeah, open to any questions that folks have. And I'm now seeing the chat, so yeah, open to questions. Yeah, Decca, and then Amanda.
Thank you, Julian. That was really, really good overview of the Grants for Change application. So a couple of questions that I have.
Yeah.
So you said that you have a large group of people, about 40 of them, looking through the applications and reading it. Do you have certain category or processes that they need to follow to score the applications? That is number one. Number two is, you also said that the folks who applied for the grants can be part of the reading of the grants. So let's say, and I am talking in a way that is the devil is advocate here. Yeah. I see other people, applying. I don't want them to get the grant. I'm like, I'm gonna score them bad. I mean, is that transparent enough for the people who are applying for the grants to read the grants?
It's a great question, Decca. So yeah, just in terms of the readers, so we hope to have a couple of hundred readers to read, because we want to get as many community members to read the applications to help, and also for them to learn about the work. So that means, yeah, hopefully 10 or 12 people initially will read, and they'll do the evaluation. And there is both sort of scoring in terms of like Likert scale, but also opportunity for people to write comments. And we look at all of that. We want people to reflect. So we take that information and we bring that to the 40 people in November. And then, yes, we invite applicants to review as well. And we know that this is on some level inherently competitive. And in our experience, folks that are in this work and doing this work are also in it in terms of building community, and so I haven't seen applicants who are currently applicants make any really evaluations or scoring that's like really off. If it's really, really off, either we'll go back to the reader and just sort of ask. If reads seem to be, some reads are like really, really high, right? Or really low. In the past, we have also contemplated sort of removing the high and the low read. Again, when we have like 12, sometimes we've even had like close to 15 reads for each application. We can remove the high and the low, and it's actually, we still have a substantial number of reads that are more aligned. But we want to know, like, if people are like, this is an amazing organization, we want people to say that. And we trust community that's in proximity to some of this work, right? That I may not know, or other readers may not know, but you're in community with folks, and that work isn't really happening like it says it's happening or something. Hopefully you'll bring that in and share that with the grant making advisory committee. But mainly for applicants too, it can be helpful to read other other proposals. You might learn, it could be helpful in your process. So yeah, thanks for the question, Deck, and I hope you'll be a reader. So hope all of you will be a reader, because there's just a lot of wisdom in this room. Yeah.
Thank you. Just one more to follow up. You said an amount. If you hit your organization for 1.5 million, you can apply.
For this year, in terms of budget, the budget limit for the organization, it's 2.5 million for the organization's budget limit. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Amanda. So, yeah.
Hello, my name is Amanda. I go by she, her, hers. I work with Survivor Speak USA. We are an anti-trafficking organization that is formally on the ground. I do all outreach with the clients. I right now have almost 15. We hit every one of your points, like the 3 qualifications, but this would be the second time I went for this. And as you know, Dee passed away in 2021.
Yeah.
And it was a big hit for us. We're still mostly BIPOC and or Indigenous Black. So our area, so I'm in Portland, but I now work Portland, Lewiston, and like outer. Like I had to go up to Dexter for a survivor that needed help, you know what I mean? And I did that on my own. So I try to make sure that I'm able to do that. But I find that where we sit sometimes, when people read our grants, or if we don't have a grant writer, that's the other problem. It might be different. That a lot of people don't want to talk. This is a subject nobody wants to deal with. And I know this because I also sit on the board of Permanent Commission, and I'm doing a fellowship for Dee with them, So that's another like thing that I just did this past year.
Yeah.
And so I wonder how that would work, because we're outside of the scape, but I also do peer support with men, because we now are open up to men, women, and all gender. We are non-biased, and so
I'm so glad you brought that up, Amanda. One of the things that we both tell our application readers and the grant making committee, right, is that not all organizations can afford to have a grant writer. And you'll see a drastic difference between organizations that have that budget and a professional grant writer and ones that don't. And we're well aware of that, right? Especially, right, trying to support folks that are doing this work, right? And again, if you're smaller, your energy and attention needs to be with people and not, trying to figure out how to write the perfect grant, right? So we prompt our readers, right, around bias, right? So to acknowledge that, right, that it's not about how well the grant is written, or right, that there could all kinds of factors around that, but to really hold, and we try to give the opportunity for folks to talk about their work and really sort of get at the crux and the essence of like the work that's happening, right? And also the benefit of having folks in community and peers that might know your work too, and say, hey, they don't write a good grant, but let me just tell you, they're doing incredible work, right? So that's also the hope of having 300 readers and people, and then a 40+ person grant making committee, right? There will be people that know your work.
Well, I know that like some of the people, like I do work with other people in your or like your grant that you've done grants for.
Yeah.
So like we we kind of hit like multiple areas, but it's not like as known as many people would think. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Most
Yeah.
people think we're just working with women. We're not just working with women now. We are working with all
Totally.
women, men, and however you
Yeah. It,
identify.
it would be great for you to include that, Amanda. And two, if you want to, please, reach out.
I
And I would, yeah, if it would be helpful to have a phone conversation, would love to do that. Yeah.
definitely.
I
Thank
know
you.
yeah, of course. I know we're at 1 o'clock or a little bit after one. So I just recognize that. If you got to drop, thank you so much for joining. If you have a few more minutes and have a question, we're here, we're available, happy to answer other questions. Yeah, and many of you, Eddie Gray Fox, great to see you again. And yeah, I feel like you're familiar with our process in this program. So
Yeah, and you and I and your staff have joined in and had calls. I think that's very informative for you guys. I have a writing disability, so I always feel like I'm at a deficit when I'm writing grants because I don't write well, and between the dyslexia and the ability to write well with the English, it's just not there.
yeah,
And I know it's not there because I graduated college and my English teacher told me it's not there. So I always wonder, did I not get the grant because people didn't like the grant or did they not understand what I'm trying to write? And
totally.
so, I hope people reach out. I hope people call or Zoom or do whatever to ask pertinent questions,
Definitely.
I'm now going to start putting that on all the grants because this year, sadly, we haven't gotten really any grants other than Sewell Foundation. So I'm just going to start putting that in there. If you have any questions, please contact us
Right,
uh,
right.
just to
That
open
makes
that
sense.
door.
Yeah.
Because when you apply to 20 different grants and you only get one, that's really a dumber downer type of
Yeah.
situation. Um, and
I, Eddie,
so.
yeah, I hear that. I mean, it's as you know, like applying, it's a lot of energy and then not getting grants, and we hope that with this process too, that there will be people like we have also peer funders who are readers that through this process, they may read your application, right? Even if you're not applying to their grant, and they'll say, oh, I need to keep this organization in mind, or hopefully like reach out. Like this is work that's happening, and my focus is like Lewis and Auburn, or my focus is on DV work, or right, and this is a group that I need to be in touch with. That's also our hope. If we as a smaller funder don't have the resources necessarily, that we're bringing other groups, foundations, hopefully other resources, and also just people to hopefully support your work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Um,
important.
yeah. Amanda, I see your hand, but anybody else, and we'll come to you. Anybody else just have a question too? Okay. Yeah, Amanda.
So, first question I was going to ask, Eddie, what organization are you with,
Thanks, John.
if you don't mind?
I'm the president of the Wellness Mobile Foundation, and we do outreach, referrals, and case management, and we cover from Bath to Freiburg and then up into Farmington.
I asked because I do sit on the permanent commission. That's how it happened. I'm Black, Brown, and Indigenous, and I'm a survivor of sex trafficking. And then I also like sit on multiple other organizations that are smaller and not doing the same work that I do, but it's impacting what other people that could have like help get people from non-housing to housing, looking for like I'm right now working with two men up in Lewiston. One is in a sober house, one is on the street, and trying to get them, you know, they both have a different idea, but you see people that judge before they get all the information or see only parts.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard. And I'm a reader too, a grant reader for another organization. So, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's hard for me to always explain everything that we're doing because or I can't say a lot of it's me. I do a lot in the community. So a lot of people know me and or know my name. So it's weird. But I mean, like you were saying, Eddie, I recently got a non-disclosure grant, and that was helpful because now I can work up there for a couple more months. You know what I mean? So we're just trying to figure out like next best steps. And I think this would be a big improvement to our work and what we do and getting people out there.
And if reach out to Amanda Eddie Gray Fox, if I'm happy also to connect you to, if y'all don't know each other already, happy to make that connection. I just want to open, Foster or Issa, Nylot, if you have any questions, or and it's cool if if you don't, maybe that we did a good job of providing information today, but just to say, also we're available, email.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. Oh, go ahead, Foster.
I'm sorry. First and foremost, I'm sorry for being late today due to my current situation. We was released late at the facility.
It's okay, of course.
I thought the information was plentiful.
Okay.
And we're in the process of filling it out and going to have it submitted before July 31st. And I just want to thank everyone for allowing us to be a part of this excellent opportunity. Whether we are selected for a grant or not, just being thought about in this capacity is a wonderful opportunity for the Main State Prison NAACP. And I thank you, Roland. I thank John Courtney for providing opportunities for to be here today. And I just really we all appreciate it here at the facility.
Yeah. Thanks, Foster. It means a lot. And for all the great work you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you.
And WCP. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so, yeah, I was just gonna say, very thankful to be here. I think for me, this is like obviously work I want to do, and I love the opportunity to be able to see like all of the resources that are available. I think it just sucks because I work for a predominantly white organization, which does not really do some of this work. So I've been trying to think about like how we, as a small org, can do that work while still being, white led and white centered, because we have the resources, and we have one of me, but yeah, I think it's just work that's not being done. And I guess I just wonder sometimes like how we can collaborate to do it in a way where like it's still being led by Black and brown people, but under the resources of like a environmental giant like Sierra Club.
Yeah.
I think I asked this question last time, but yeah, it's just a question that me and me and my fundraiser have been talking about, because we really want to start doing outings. We want to do like BIPOC specific outings, and we also want to start doing BIPOC coalition work that is specific to mobilizing Black and brown people to start looking at environmental policy. And so like that's work that we obviously are like really good at hold in our organization, but we specifically want to start fertilizing a space that would specifically be for Black and brown people. So yeah.
Well, needed, and that's powerful work. And I would say too, a couple of things now. And this is why we also say you don't have to be an organization. We will fund groups that have a fiscal sponsor. So if this is work that you're passionate about and you and the person you're talking about want to start that, and you could, for example, get Sierra Club to be your fiscal sponsor with the caveat, right, that all of the resources go to you.
Yeah.
Right. That's part of it. They have access to a lot of other resources, but if they're going to be your fiscal sponsor, you're going to do this work. We want that assurance that all of this gets to go to support that work. So either with Sierra Club or outside of Sierra Club, if you find another.
Oh, so sorry, just a point of clarification. Yeah. So even with me working within Sierra Club, if it's specifically going to be work that's housed under me, are you saying that I can do that?
It would have to be a different group.
Yeah.
Like you would have to, right. You would have to establish yourself. It couldn't be, this is Sierra Club.
Yeah.
And we have this project, right? And that happens, right? And sometimes groups reach out to me and say, hey, we're a white-led organization, or we have a lot of funding, but we want to do this one project that's led by BIPOC folks. And then I come back and say, that's amazing. You should do that. And I want you to rededicate some of your current funding to support that, right? That make that a priority, right? So that's the conversation I have. So, but I would say, Nylat, if this is something you want to do, you create sort of a separate group, right? That has its own identity. They could potentially be your fiscal sponsor, but all of those funds would need to come to you. Or if, we reach out, if you would want to find a fiscal sponsor separate, we may be able to sort of help locate some other organizations that would be willing to be your fiscal sponsor. And then the last thing I would say on that too, in terms of moving your organization a little bit, is to invite leadership in your organization to become readers, right? Let them see kind of all the amazing work that's happening, and it might change the conversation around potentially funding the work that you want to do in the organization too, right? We'll bring them in. We can have conversations too with them and support that kind of shift in the organization, in the Sierra Club as well. And maybe that would sort of shift priorities internally for them too. Just some thoughts, but Nylat, I'd be happy to sort of talk with you sort of separately strategize around some of this.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Foster, see your hand.
Yeah, just a quick question regarding the BIPOC question, where it has to meet these 3 qualifications or some of those qualifications. If you don't meet any, I know you explained it earlier, and I took notes on that. Is there a specific answer you're looking for to explain why you don't have or not part of any of those members? Because being the main state president NAACP branch, we would actually be disqualified for having board members from BIPOC to be part of our organization, because we're inside an institution. You have to actually reside here. You see what I'm saying? So would that be a disqualifier for being accepted for a grant?
It wouldn't, and we provide a space just to explain that, right? So our readers understand that. I mean, NAACP in and of itself, in terms of a Black-led supporting organization at large. Foster, I know that you were the chair or the president of the local chapter. So you also, as a leader, I think that's something that certainly, just in terms of the context and the conditions, there's an opportunity to write in there, hey, this is our situation. That certainly wouldn't be a problem for us in terms of eligibility, and I would assume that readers would totally get that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And I would think that including the membership of the body of the organization is important too, right, Julian? Like if you have 10 members from the African community, 10 members from the Latino community, 10 members from the Native American community, or whomever may be a part of the organization, making sure that that's noted as well.
Yeah, certainly. I think that would be helpful for folks who your work is impacting and serving, certainly. Yeah.
Because I may not.
We're actually a multicultural branch.
Yeah.
We have 102 members throughout the facility, and many of them are indigenous people, as well as African Americans and our counterpart Caucasians. So we're very diverse within our facility. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, right. In a place like Maine, that work is necessarily happening across lines of race, right? And that's crucial.
Especially when you only have 3% or 4% of the population is BIPOC.
Yeah, and that's, you know, part of our hope too in this sort of in the way we do these grants, hopefully, is that, you know, we're trying to bring some of those people, right, who are committed to racial justice, but may not be connected in the same way or impacted, that they get to learn about the work and commit to supporting this work, you know, and this is one way of doing it, or supporting that as well, we hope. Yeah, maybe if there's maybe just either one more question or comment. I know y'all are we've gone past our hour. I mean, this is I love this. We get a chance to just sort of talk and, you know, don't have all the information, but yeah. Amanda, you're on mute. Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to say, Foster, I think you're doing an amazing job. I actually got to meet somebody else that works with you recently, and it was amazing. We just worked with another part of the newcomers to Maine with language barriers, and to explain like how it went, like, so as I had said, I work with anti-sex trafficking. So it's hard for me to be like, yes, no, maybe. Like Dee had a way of doing it, so I'm trying to follow in her footsteps. This is her company, whether or not she's here or not. And a lot of people laugh at me, but that's okay. We just want to do right by her and make sure that this goes. And we've been doing really well, even with the smallest help that we do get. But we've done a lot of things. Like we went to Washington, D.C. for one of the World Exploitation recently, and that was amazing. And I was grateful for that. We have another one coming up, but I'm unsure if we're going to be able to go. But I would love to connect with some of the people in this room, because I think that that would be also beneficial to them and me. I mean, also with the fact that, you know, I'm not where you are, but I can be, you know what I mean? I try to make it so that I'm able, like, I'm gonna have to go and bring the car back, but I can go and get a car, you know what I mean? So I try to be available for all my clients in any space. So I just want to say you guys did an amazing job. You really did. And I can't wait to hear from you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Amanda. And I'll just say it's an honor for us, for me, to be in the room with all of you, because I follow all of your work, right? So this is why I do this, is to hopefully kind of try to support the amazing work that you all are doing, whether it be through this grant making or otherwise, or organizing people resources and support of this work, right? So even if it doesn't happen through this grant making, I mean, I feel like we're all connected, right? And so I hope even in this process that that connections are made that can support what you're doing, because it's crucial. And I say that as somebody who's following all of the things that you all are doing in your spaces. So yeah, really appreciate you coming today, your attention, your interest in this grant program, and yeah, and just to say, If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out via email. Our emails will probably have my phone number on there. So, and many of you probably have it. So if it's easier to text or to call, please do that. I want to be available to help in any way I can. Yeah. Okay. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, Julian.
Take good
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
Thank you, Decca.
Thanks, Bree.
It's nice
Yeah.
to meet you all.
Great.
Have a great day.
Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Foster.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Leaving. Trying to leave.